is the map a good representation of the territory so that the person can live a completely fulfilled life? Now, one of the challenges of science of mind and spirit is that Ernest Holmes never delineated very clearly a specific map of specific concepts. He didn't say, for example, these are the 10 principles of science of mind. Learn them. And so what has happened over the years is different people in our teaching have interpreted the map somewhat differently. And in some respects, that's very good, because you can go to different spiritual centers and you're going to get a little different emphasis on the map. And of course, each person will relate to it in their own particular way and how it works for them in their own life. Because if this teaching doesn't work, if it doesn't work for you, then what are we doing it for? Or as Ernest Holmes said it more bluntly, he said, inspiration without application is hallucination. In other words, you can come in on Sunday and say, oh, this is great, I'm all good about it, but how do you take it out into the world? How do you take it out into your life? How do you use it each and every moment? And so we have made a decision in CSL that we are going to explore to see if we can come into a consensus about what the 10 or maybe 8 or 9 or whatever concepts, core concepts or fundamental principles of our teaching are. And so what we're doing, we're doing it, I'm teaching a class of about 40 ministerial candidates, and one of the assignments that they have is to come up with their own 10 fundamental concepts. And then we're actually sending out into our communities, we're sending out a survey and asking people to participate. So at the end of this year, the idea is that we will be able to at least come up with these 10 ideas that are collective from the science of mind. So with that in mind, let's take a look at what could be, and I want you to think about these things yourself. What are the most important things about this teaching for you that work in your life? Well, the first one, obviously, is unity, because everything proceeds from the oneness of God. Or, to say it simply, God is one. Everything comes from the one, which means there is no duality. No duality. In other words, we don't believe in good and evil. We simply believe in God and the progressiveness of God, the unfoldment of spirit in life. Now, right away, people are going to say, oh, well, wait a minute. People do bad things. People do evil things. And of course, we recognize that there are acts that are done in derogation of the divine and derogation of the goodness of God. And basically, Science of Mind takes the position that that's a question of basically ignorance, that people don't really realize the truth. If you realize the truth, you wouldn't do it. Now, by realizing, you can realize it intellectually. Every one of us in this room has been in a situation where we knew the right thing to do. Maybe not everybody, but I have. Where I knew what the right thing to do was, and I still didn't do it. And I'm not asking people to raise their hands or to discuss that, but we've been there. And so you would say, well, because see, Paul in the Bible, he said, this proves that man is naturally sinful. He said that. Because if we weren't sinful, then we would always do the right thing if we knew what the right thing to do was. In fact, he said, I know what the right thing to do is, and I don't do it all the time, therefore I am sinful. But what Paul did not understand, he did not understand the nature of the subconscious mind. And that's a tremendous gift that Science of Mind gives to us. Because if you begin to understand the power of the subconscious mind, you can understand that even though you intellectually and consciously know what the right thing to do, that there are tremendous subconscious beliefs. And a lot of it has to do with worthiness. It has to do with feelings of non-acceptability that are buried in the subconscious that cause us to do certain things. So one of the things that we're not afraid of doing is going into the subconscious, looking and bringing forth these ideas up so that when we know and we know that we know, that's called embodiment, then we're going to do the right thing. We're going to flow with Spirit in the right way. So, we believe that everything comes from the one presence and the one power of Spirit. And the wonderful thing about it is totally consistent with modern science. If you study the Big Bang, if you study the way our physical universe was formed, you study quantum physics, it is totally consistent with our teaching. And that, to me, that is really wonderful, because we say we are the science of mind, and we say that our teaching is not contradictory to what we know about science. And so it's an eclectic teaching that embraces both spirituality and science. All is one. Everything comes from the one energy, the one power. All right, the second idea is the idea of purpose. Now, this is an idea that is more based on faith than is based on empirical evidence, because if you just took a scientific point of view, or you took a materialistic point of view, you'd say, well, maybe there is no purpose in the world. Maybe everything is just a chaotic mess. Maybe everything just happened by accident. And you got all of these crazy things going on. But our teaching says that ultimately there is a purpose to the whole thing. And so what is the purpose? Because there is a universal purpose, there is a purpose in our lives. And what is that purpose? What is the purpose? Why are we here? That's the question they have. What are we here for? What are we doing? And that's a fundamental question that people have always asked. And in Science of Mind, the answer to that question is basically, we are here to come into the realization of the truth that we're spiritual beings and not merely human beings. We are here to come into the realization that our fundamental essence, we are loving spiritual beings. And that is a progression that takes place. Because most of us develop the idea of an ego personality and the idea that we're protecting ourselves from the forces outside somewhere. And we gradually, as you get deeper and deeper into the teaching and you trust more, you have more intimacy with the teaching, you begin to let go of some of those ego protections, and you begin to realize that there is a presence that loves us, that supports us, that lifts us up into who we are. And so our purpose here is to really discover and live from that essence of who we are. Live from the highest and best that we can become. And the one thing that, one of the reasons Gisela and I went into ministry is because we just know as a matter of faith that that's the truth. We know as a matter of faith that people are good. We know that people want to be loved and they want to love. That's what people want. That's what people want to live for. Yeah. And one of the things that a spiritual community can do is to help people remember the truth of who they are. Remember that we are actually loving spiritual beings. Now, there are always those times about our lower nature and I've been involved in them too. When we get into stressful situations, usually we fall back into subconscious beliefs and protective mechanisms. But the truth is that we are loving individualizations of the divine, and our purpose is to discover. All right, the third idea is simply the idea of image and likeness. It starts back in the Bible. We are made in the image and after the likeness of the divine. Well, what does that mean? Well, the first thing it means is that the very creative powers that created the entire universe are the very creative powers within you and within me. In other words, it says in the Bible, God spoke its word and the word became manifest. It also means that you and I can speak our word and our word becomes manifest. In other words, we teach that we live in a metaphysical system, metaphysical meaning that before there are conditions or events in the world, there are ideas and thoughts about those conditions, and those ideas and thoughts become manifest. And this means that we have the presence and the power to declare what it is that we want to have occur in our lives, just as Spirit, or the universal Spirit, declared, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. So, image and likeness means that we have the same creative capacities within us that are within the divine. Okay, that's the idea of image and likeness, and that we are made in the image and after the likeness of the divine, which means we are always moving towards the full manifestation of the divine in our lives as individualizations of Spirit. The fourth idea is the idea of evolution. Science of mind believes in evolution. So this is consistent with science. We believe in Darwinian evolution up to the point of a human self-conscious person. We believe that evolution changes when people begin to choose, because it changes the whole evolutionary idea. In other words, the self-conscious individual can begin to choose how he or she wishes to live their life. And when they do make the choice, they change the evolutionary process. Scientists today are beginning to change the evolutionary process of how things are working in the world. So we accept the idea of evolution in science, but there is a spiritual evolution, a greater evolution that is coming to fore by our conscious choices. The fifth principle is goodness. We live in a good and loving universe. Well, what does that mean? It means that the universe is for us. It means that we live in a life-affirming universe. It means that there is this tendency towards goodness in the entire universe. It's called the grace of God. And I know I've done this before, and I know you've heard it before, but just think of the song, Row, Row, Row Your Boat. I always think of that, because if you sing the song, Row, Row, Row Your Boat, there are 3 rows. And if you sing the rest of it, it goes merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream. For every 3 rows that you put in, you get 4 merrilies. That is the grace of God, and that is the proof, if you want proof from a song, that there is goodness in this universe. So if you assert yourself, put yourself into this loving universe with good intention, you're going to get more back. It even says in the book of Malachi, it says, "Come to me with your tithes and your offerings into my storehouse, and see if I do not give you an abundance that is overflowing." It's not you're getting back what you put in. That's not what it is. You're going to get back way more than you put in if you trust this universal presence and power. We live in a good and loving universe. The sixth idea of science of mind is basically take charge. It's up to us. This means that you cannot blame another person or another circumstance or another thing for what's going on in your life. You have to take, and I have to take, total dominion and responsibility for what has happened in our lives. So if there is an event that occurs, instead of looking for someone else or somebody else to blame for it, we have to go and say, all right, how did I participate in the causation of this event? How did I participate, and how can I change that? So by taking complete dominion and responsibility for our lives, we can move to the idea of complete freedom. We have the power and the presence to be absolutely free. The seventh principle is simply the metaphysical principle that thoughts are things. Okay, that's a simple bumper sticker idea, but what does it mean? It means that your deepest belief systems, how you think, how you feel, how you imagine your life to be, is the way that it turns out. So we can begin to learn methods and techniques for positive thinking, for positive feelings, for creative imaginations, so that we can picture the way we want our life to be. Now, sports psychologists have known this for years. They've done all kinds of things where they work with people over and over and over again, where they're picturing what happens in the actual performance of the event. And the truth is, it works out exactly the way it is embodied. But the truth is, you have to embody it. So if you want your life to be a certain way, you have to picture and imagine it that it's that way. And you have to work on it. It's not simply saying it, my thoughts create my reality. You have to work on it and think about it. And the eighth